Even as the East was conquering the Wild West, even before the United States was fully charted, much of America's attention was already turning to a different kind of frontier, the Orient, then the eastern and southern borders of the Mediterranean, the edge of the known world, areas we know today as North Africa and the Near and Middle East.
The Orient had tremendous appeal at that time. It was a distant, exotic, alluring, mysterious place, and steamships made it easier to get there, and it made it a more comfortable and enjoyable process.
Some of the first Americans to travel were painters.
There weren't magazines and newspapers and television showing people what these regions looked like, so when a painter went, it was a tremendous bonus for people who had never been there before.
The Orient itself inspired a variety of artistic reactions. Some painters, such as Frederick Church, recorded this land with great reverence. Following in the footsteps of Jesus Christ, Church brought home vivid images of Jerusalem and the Holy Land. Other artists, such as Louis Comfort Tiffany, were deeply influenced by the region's radiant color and light. Still other Americans recreated the fabled Orient and its larger-than-life tales, such as the Arabian Nights, popular reading in homes across America. Some Americans studied painting in France, then took their new skills to the Orient.
When you studied at a French academy, a French art school, what you were trained to do was depict the human figure with anatomical precision. In America in the middle and late 19th century, France and Europe at large represented or epitomized the standards of artistic achievement. And so many artists trying to make it in America thought that they needed French training.
But in addition to acquiring new skills, American painters also encountered French stereotypes of the Orient. French paintings were seductively realistic, but in fact, they were often creative concoctions of technical virtuosity. Some Americans schooled in France also preferred beauty to fact, experimenting with bright fabrics and rich skin tones. John Singer Sargent created a visual tour de force using multiple shades of white. Some paintings were quite misleading. Edwin Lord Weeks, for instance, accurately detailed the architecture of the Mosque of Cordoba in Spain, but for one flaw. His kneeling figures appear to be worshiping the man on the right, even though Muslims prostrate themselves only to God. While America emerged as a major world power, American painters communicated that power visually, using a metaphor learned in France.
If you place a woman in a languid, reclining, vulnerable position, then the viewer, the person who placed her there or the person who is looking at her there, has implicit power over her. If you, in turn, make that person stand for another culture, then you have power over the other culture as well.
But perhaps the most powerful way artists demonstrated America's greatness was by suggesting that other cultures were backward or technologically inferior.
Pictures have a tremendous impact. They have a tremendous power to shape people's opinions and belief systems, and that's the dimension of Orientalist pictures that we need to be aware of.
Beyond painting the Orient as a traditional or even backward land, Americans strove to possess objects from the Orient. Such trophies enhanced one's status in a worldly fashion, and soon became de rigueur among the elite. Painter William Merritt Chase never set foot in the Orient. Instead, he created his studio and a few exotic paintings purely from carefully chosen cliches of Orientalism. The tabaret table, the swords, and the Oriental carpet, all set in the luxurious density of Victorian design. Similar objects appear in other paintings of the era. By the end of the 1880s, the Orient had satisfied the desire of an elite few. But the Orient was about to become the property of the masses. In 1893, the World's Columbian Exposition opened in Chicago, commemorating the 400th anniversary of Columbus's discovery of America. Millions of people attended the fair from all over the country. the fair was designed to emphasize America's superiority.
The fair was the first place that the Pledge of Allegiance was communally expressed or stated. That's indicative of how important this event was. This was when America declared itself to be America, and America was the best. And this was abundantly clear in the way they arranged their fair.
The White City, the beautiful neoclassical White City, was not the place where the Orientals were exhibited. They were relegated to the periphery of the exhibition with other non-Western nations to the famous Midway. And their architecture was quite different. They were little shacks, little pavilions. Then there was the depiction of the people, presented as though they were not capable of change and they were not capable of belonging to the contemporary civilization of the West. Considering Oriental cultures as curious and weird was demeaning.
The most demeaned, perhaps, were North African women who performed their dances to an Americanized beat. And so the famous hoochie coochie, or belly dance, was born. The performances sexualized the Orient for American audiences. Until now, women's bodies had been passive and camouflaged by Victorian dress and its many constraining underpinnings. In the wake of the fair, the female body became a vehicle of expression, even high art. Dancer Ruth St. Denis claimed she was inspired by a cigarette ad bearing the picture of an Egyptian deity. She created free-form dances, many with Oriental themes. Orientalism also entered the world of high fashion. Dancing, loose tunics, and harem pants heralded the arrival of a more liberated era. Women joined the workforce in droves. Suffragettes fought for the right to vote. While women sought greater freedom of dress and personal liberties, men sought the freedoms of the harem as they imagined them. Many men escaped to a kind of Oriental fraternity. The Arabic Order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, the Shriners for short, is a purely North American organization that attracted hundreds of thousands of members in a few short years. All across America, the Orient sold well. From candy to tobacco, the Orient was clearly good for business. Oriental advertising enticed buyers to experience a fantasy along with a new product. Another showcase for the Orient was the movie industry. Women became exotic and dangerous, perhaps none more so than actress Theda Bara, beturbaned and beguiling in A Fool There Was. It was said that Theda Bara had been born in the shadow of the pyramids, and that even the letters of her name could spell Arab death. The epitome of the passionate Oriental man was Rudolph Valentino. The Sheik was the story of an upper-class Englishwoman abducted by a desert Arab. As in many American Orientalist films, modern man was virile, passionate, and charismatic. Modern woman, liberated, fashionable, and still obedient to her man. Only when the Sheik is found to have European ancestry can the two fall in love without offending American sensibilities. Male heroism is also the theme of The Thief of Baghdad, starring Douglas Fairbanks. This morally uplifting tale employed then state-of-the-art special effects to create a flamboyantly imagined Orient in the style of the Arabian Nights. In it, Fairbanks eventually wins the hand of a princess. And so, in the 50 years between the Civil War and the Great Depression, America had fashioned her own Orient. For some, a foil for America's progress. For others, an invitation to a new and modern lifestyle. America's Orient was a fascinating, persistent dream, as it traveled from the salons of the elite to the parlors of the middle class in ever more contemporary guises.